What's going on, Arquesians? Want to bring you a little theory and discussion video about some possibilities regarding the Argos update. There's a lot to talk about with this, so we'll try to stay on track with it as much as we can. I do apologize if we get a little back and forth, scatterbrained with some of the talking points. That being said, let's get into it. I think it's a very real possibility that on the Argos update, we see a massive change to honing enhancements to where basically you will be able to get tier 3 characters for free. Near free, anyways. I'm not talking about a 1302 boost, okay? I'm talking about, remember those patch notes from before release that had the honing success rates on there for tier 1 and tier 2, with it being 100% all the way from 1 to 15, and the reduced material cost for tier 3 as well, with a slightly improved honing chance? Yeah, I'm thinking that is very much so a possibility that those notes were meant for the Argos update. And when these patch notes were being compiled for release, those were the only patch notes that had anything about honing information. And so that might have just gotten slipped in there for that category because it was the only thing about honing. All right. I think that it's a very real possibility that these honing changes will come with the Argos update as a way to push the majority of your player base into tier 3, which is where Gold River seems to be where he wants people. That's what he talked about. He talked about saying that tier 3 and beyond, Argos, Legion raids, etc., that is the best experience of the game. That's the portion of the game that has the best player retention. That seems like that's where they want the majority of the audience to get to. They want to get people to tier 3. Part of that's already being shown with the fact that some of the T1 and T2 content is already being nerfed because it's causing problems for people who are currently in tier 1 and tier 2 to progress through it. You guys have to remember, the vast majority of your player base is still in tier 1 and tier 2. If you are in tier 3, you are the minority. All right? But back to the honing, this would push everybody who is still in tier 1 and tier 2 immediately to tier 3, because it would be a 100% success rate all the way through. No failures. You would not fail any of your enhancements, 1 to 15, and it would have reduced material costs. It would cost you half the materials because your successes, also for your successes from like 1 through 11, were +2 for each successful enhancement, right? And so these changes would push people through that tier 1 and tier 2 and get them into the tier 3, which is where they want people to be. All right. Now, this would also definitely frustrate and anger a lot of the people who are currently in tier 3 and have pushed their way into their progression and tried to get to 1370 already, spent a lot of gold, spent a lot of materials. This would greatly frustrate a lot of those players. But at the end of the day, you also have to think of that the people who are currently in tier 3 are the minority. They are not the meat of the audience. You are a very small percentage. I'm in that percentage. I understand. I would be annoyed by it too. Would I be angry? I don't know if I'd be angry. I'd be annoyed, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, great. My alts are getting to tier 3 as well. Fantastic. And then any future classes that release as well, boom. They are able to get to tier 3 very quickly also. All right. Now, this would immediately push your entire audience, the majority of your audience, to tier 3 very quickly. People still have to get resources. They still have to get materials and do the enhancing, right? So people would still have to spend some time there if they aren't prepared for it, all right? But, the tier 3 honing chances, people who are already 1370 for Argos when it comes out, you would still have the advantage of being able to do Argos from day 1, all right? The rest of the player base who isn't tier 3, which is the majority, by the way, remember, the majority of the audience isn't in tier 3 yet, all right? This would be them getting to tier 3. They still have to enhance up to 1370. The honing details for tier 3 was a reduction in cost as well as materials, but only a 20%, I say only, but a 20% increase in honing success for tier 3 gear from 1302, as well as the 1340 gear that comes from hard mode Orejas. Here's the thing. 11 to 12 is a 15% success rate. We have failed multiple times already at 15% on this piece. Here's our little bit of our bonus honing that we've gained from it. Our artisan's energy has already been built up some. We have had 2 failures, so it's gone up 6% for the success chance. It's at 15%. This 20% increase in enhancing would make this a 35% base success chance. That is still lower than what people are trying to hit for plus 14 to 15 in tier 1 and tier 2. It is still going to take people time to enhance up to Argos. All right. So those of you who are already 1370 or the super, lucky people or whales who have gotten to 1385, you would still be able to experience phase 1 or phase 2 of Argos before everybody else. Your work through all this time would still not be for naught. You would still get first dibs on the drops, on the gold, on the stuff that came from Argos in that regard. But this would push the rest of the player base into tier 3 and expedite the process of getting to Argos. This wouldn't guarantee them to Argos by any means. The only thing that's guaranteed is plus 1 to 6. But again, 11 to 12 is 15%. This goes even lower down to 10%. Like 14 to 15 right now is like 10%. With this buff that comes from the tier 3 honing for the Argos, if this was a thing, that would only make it a 30%. That's still really low. People are still going to fail a bunch, and it's going to cost people their gold, their silver. It's 20,000 silver a hit. All right now. Okay. It's very silver intensive. People still need to get materials. People still need to have gold and silver and all that for doing this. Okay. So it's not like if this update, if this did come with the Argos update, that everybody's suddenly going to be able to do Argos. Okay. People would still have to get to tier 3 and they'd have to go through the enhancing process. Would people get to Argos a lot quicker? Yes, absolutely. And I think that is the intention. I think the goal here is to get the majority of your player base into that end game T3 loop of doing Argos, doing your Chaos, doing your Guardians, and doing those things again on your alts as well, getting people into the actual meat of the tier 3 end game loop. All right? Adding more weekly content that they get engaged in. I don't think that that's a bad thing per se. Now, again, this is definitely going to be something that would be annoying for people who have gotten to 1370 already, who have gotten to tier 3 and fought their way there, did the content and all this. But, I think the long-term goal is to get the ball rolling on the tier 3 content. Right? Gold River said that, Argos was going to be coming in a month when he did his interview. Here we are. It's coming. It's right here. And the Legion generals would be, they're going to be soon to follow most likely. And I think that this would just, get people through the nitty gritty of the tier 1 and tier 2 and get them into that tier 3 endgame loop. Now, is this happening? I have no idea. This is merely my speculation around it based on the fact that these were patch notes that Amazon already had translated on hand, ready to go, back before it even released for our version. Now, if it doesn't come with the Argos update, it's obvious that this is going to be something that will happen in the future, no matter what, because it is a catch-up style system. All right? I think that this is a better alternative than giving everybody a 1302 boost like some people are thinking that we would be getting. People still have to play the game this way. They still have to do Chaos and Guardians at tier 1 and tier 2, get their materials, hone, go through the game systems, go through the story, all that. The idea that people would get a 1302 boost is ludicrous when most of your player base isn't even in 1302 plus content yet. Okay? So I'm going to, that, in my opinion, X-nay that idea real fast. But I do think that, it's very much so a possibility that they want to get people into this content ASAP. And this would be one of the ways to do it, and this would be the time to do it. people would still have to enhance their way up to Argos. They still have to enhance beyond 1370 as well, you know, in order to get to the higher phases of Argos, right? But you know, it's just one of those things to think about as a possibility. I know many of you are probably thinking, this is absolutely crazy. There's no way they would do this. Hey, if they don't do this, that's, you know, hey, that's all fine and dandy. But literally hardly anyone is going to be doing Argos when it comes out. The majority of your audience is nowhere even near Argos right now. Very small percentage of your player base is doing Argos on release. So we'll just have to wait and see how that plays out. This is just a little food for thought, something to think about, things to discuss as a possibility of what could be happening. So I do think that it is a very real possibility, and we'll just have to wait and see come time for the patch notes what exactly happens with it. I do think at the very least there would be some type of event, maybe some additional materials or bonus enhancing mats, things like that. I do think at the bare minimum we would see some sort of event at the bare bones minimum to try and help people along in terms of their enhancing, because right now so many people are not even close to Argos. But you know, we'll see. Thank you all for watching. You can catch us live on Twitch at twitch.tv/Zav, and we'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.